your community with us today. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, where are you? Well, first of all, my name is Alexandria. Some of you may know me as AOC. But I'm so happy to be here today, and thank you so much for welcoming me to Greeley. I really appreciate it. That you have a representative who has not done a town hall. You know, I will say, usually your first 3 months on a new job, you are on your best behavior and working your hardest and doing your best. I don't know if anyone's had like a probationary period at a job before. Can you imagine if we had those for members of Congress? Anyways, all of that is to say, if this is the best that you all are getting, I think you deserve better. Now, my home is a ways from here, but in truth, I think the distance between us is a lot shorter than we think, and even that we're told. And in fact, I think that we are all here together because we share in the frustration and the heartache that comes from watching those in power actively tear down or refuse to fight for everyday working Americans like us. Family. My mom cleaned houses. My dad worked really hard to try to start a small business in order to do their best to give a better future to my brother and I. And, you know, they worked really hard. And for a minute, it looked like our American dream was within grasp. We grew up and we really struggled, but my parents worked so hard. And it really started to feel like things were starting to work out. I worked really hard. I was able to get into college, and suddenly my dad was diagnosed with a really rare cancer out of nowhere. And by the time I was 18 years old, he had passed away. And I think this is an experience, while it is really difficult, I think a lot of us have had experiences like these, where we work so hard, and we are one event away from feeling like the whole rug got pulled out from under us. And we shouldn't have to live like that. We shouldn't have to live like that. You know, after my dad passed away, my mom, then overnight, was basically a single mother to 2 kids. She was cleaning houses, she started driving school buses, and when I graduated from college, I started waiting tables in order to help make ends meet. And this was right after the Great Recession, and folks know how hard it was to come by a job at that time. And so that's when I started waiting tables to make ends meet. And I know that, you know, we just deserve so much better than this. We do. Extreme concentration of power and corruption is taking over our country like never before. And we are here because we do know that a better world is possible. us together than ever before. Because the same billionaires are taking a wrecking ball to our country, and they derive their power from dividing working people apart. They specialize in getting us to turn on one another. And they get us to turn on one another along lines of left and right, race and gender, creed and culture. Every label and judgment and cultural debate in the book to keep us distracted. Because the last thing they want us to realize is that the division that is actually hurting our country the most is how endless greed is costing the lives of everyone else. Our lives are suffering because of the LGBT kid down the street, or because of the mixed status family or the dreamer down the block who's just trying to make a better life for us. And I understand that this kind of disdain that the wealthiest people in this country have for the working class doesn't just come from them not being raised right. It's shorthand for the right wing's entire political agenda and a certain ugly kind of politics. A politics that involves lying to and screwing over working and middle-class Americans so that they can steal Social Security and benefits to pay for tax cuts for the wealthiest and bailouts for their crypto billionaire friends. There's a word for this kind of thing: corruption. Seeing all of this stack up, from how overwhelming and selfish all of this is, from seeing the notifications on our phone popping up, Monday, the Department of Education being rolled back, Tuesday, trying to end work-based citizenship. I get how all of it can make us feel despair. And I get how even it can make the best of us feel like giving up and giving in. And trust me, that is by design. That is by design. When the system is stacked against you, it's hard to feel like anything you do matters. It's hard to feel like we matter in this democracy. And it is easy to give in to despair. And I can tell you that for a while there, when I was working double shifts, tired to the bone, I did try to give up. I tried to stop caring. I tried to just keep my head down and work my shifts and accept that this is just it and this is how things are. But that is no way to live. We do not have to live like this. In fact, we cannot live like this anymore. Donald Trump does see the immense pressure that working people are under. But his answer is an America that operates on the principle of every man for himself. Divide and conquer. And now that Trump is back in power, we see it clear as day. He's handed the keys to Elon Musk, and he's selling off our country for parts to the wealthiest people in the world for a kickback. And in exchange, those billionaires and oligarchs will back his campaigns and bankroll those of his allies. They scratch his back, and he scratches theirs. And all of us are left behind. And the clever thing that these guys sell is making working people like you and me that we're just one step outside from that club. That we're just a little bit out from being able to be a billionaire too, right? Any billionaires in this room? I didn't think so. Now, it's this idea that if we just work hard, we too can have nation-state level money. Except these kinds of spoils aren't earned, really. They aren't working for these billions. They're stealing them. They're stealing them. They're stealing them from you and me. Just look at what Elon Musk and Donald Trump are doing to our healthcare, our veterans benefits, and Social Security. And you have spent a lifetime paying into. And by the way, not them, because those billionaires haven't paid their fair share of taxes in years. And mind you, even if you're not on Medicaid or Medicare, this also raises your private health insurance costs too. And let's talk about Medicaid and Medicare for a second. Because your representative, Gabe Evans, you know that guy that hasn't been showing up for the last couple months? Maybe he hasn't been showing up because he voted to cut Medicaid. In fact, every single House Republican voted to cut Medicaid. And they'll tell you, no, I didn't. It didn't say that. That's what it is. From the committee that's in charge of Medicaid. And so now they're trying to play a game and say, we didn't do that because they did by proxy, okay? So let's set the record straight. And you see, these budgets aren't just fights about numbers. They are fights over the values that define us as Americans. Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security were built on promises that we have made to each other about who and what kind of country we want to be and what kind of society we want to live in. And Medicaid and Social Security, these are not promises from politicians to people. They are not charities or handouts from billionaires to the working class. This is our money. They are promises that we have made to each other as Americans. From neighbor to neighbor, teacher to student, friend to friend. We can say to Elon Musk is get out of our health care. Because to me, Greeley, the strength of our country is not just measured by the height of our best days. It's measured by who we are and who is there for us on our worst. And that's why I'm here with you today. So let me share with you exactly what I mean. Because what these folks want to call radical and crazy, I think are just common sense. We live in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. So I believe that when a person gets sick, they shouldn't go bankrupt. Common sense. I believe that a minimum wage should cover the minimum cost to live. Common sense. And by the way, we should see that not paying a living wage is also a form of corporate welfare and handouts. Because big companies like Walmart and Amazon rely on food stamp programs and public assistance to cover the wages that they won't pay. here's another crazy radical idea for you. I believe that homes are not slot machines for investors and Wall Street. To extort working families out of every last dollar that we have. Home is sacred. And when your landlord doubles your rent overnight, or when housing prices skyrocket because Wall Street treats our housing market like a casino, your government and your public servants should fight to help you keep an affordable roof over your head. How's that for crazy? And I believe that our elected officials should take on abuses of corporate greed everywhere we find it. We must get big money out of politics. And Greeley, that's why I don't and never will take money from industry lobbyists or corporations. You know, mass media and Fox News and the right will have you believe that these American values are something out of the Communist Manifesto. They believe that we think these things because we went to some fancy college and read them in a book somewhere. But I'll tell you, I don't believe in healthcare, labor, and human dignity because I'm an extremist or a Marxist. I believe it because I was a waitress. Because I've scrubbed toilets with my mom to afford school. Because I've worked double shifts to keep the lights on. Because I lost my dad to cancer as a kid and had to see my mom open hospital bills in the days after. And I don't want us to live like this anymore, Greeley. We deserve better than this. And this isn't just about Republicans. We need a Democratic Party that fights harder for us too. But Greeley, that means our communities choosing and voting for Democrats and elected officials who know how to stand for the working class. And I want to thank the entire state and each and every one of you for working so hard to make that happen. And I'll tell you, when people want to think that there's no hope out there, trust me that there are moments of bravery that are emerging. Last week, Republicans put on the floor a draconian, awful budget bill that cut billions from health care and from working people. In fact, one of the worst parts of what Republicans voted for, including Gabe Evans voted for last week, is cutting benefits for the PACT Act for veterans exposed to burn pits. Who does that? That's like cartoon villain stuff right there. And you know, but I will say, Colorado, that when other Democrats caved, your senators, Michael Bennet and John Hickenlooper, stood strong against the D.C. pressure and voted no. They said Colorado deserves better than this. Thank you for putting in that work. And in fact, all the Democrats in the state of Colorado in Congress who represent a congressional district in the state voted against that bill too. House, Senate, everybody. So I want to thank Diana DeGette, Joe Neguse, Jason Crow, Brittany Pedersen. Defend them, Colorado. And don't stop there. I want you to look at every level of office around and support Democrats who fight, because those are the ones who can actually beat Republicans.
I'm here because you know which Coloradans did vote to gut Medicaid and jack up health care costs? Gabe Evans and Lauren Boebert right next door. So folks, you know what that means, right? We need to come together and spend every day between now and Election Day working to educate our neighbors and give Evans and Boebert the boot and replace them with a brawling Democrat who will stand for Colorado. In fact, if you will indulge me for a moment, since Gabe hasn't been around here, if we could just say hi to him for a moment, can we just say hi? See you in November. Thank you. I'll make sure he sees that. But beyond elections, Greeley, our task here is to build community. That's the deeper mission that we have. Elections, they come and go. We do our work. We set the board. But in the meantime, and during, throughout, before, and after all of that, we need to build our bonds with each other as communities. Building community, block associations, neighborhood groups, volunteer groups, church organizations, PTAs, because community is the most powerful building block we have against fascism, to defeat authoritarianism, and to root out corruption. If you don't know your neighbor, it's easier to turn on them. That's why they want to keep us separated, alone, and apart, scrolling on our phones, thinking that the person next to us is some kind of enemy. But they're not. So I'll end where I began. We might all come from different places, but we share a lot of the same experiences. So to all of those who came here today unsure of whether this is where you belong, I want to tell you that you do. You do. Honestly, no matter who you voted for in the past, no matter if you know all the right words to say, no matter your race, religion, gender identity, or status, no matter if you disagree with me on a couple things, if you are willing to fight for someone you don't know, you are welcome here. If you are willing to fight for working people, regardless of who they are, how they identify, or where they come from, you are welcome here. But I will say this. Those leaders on either side of the aisle who are willing to put their fellow Americans down so that they can get ahead or feel better about themselves, those folks may best find a home somewhere else. Because in this house, we stand together. We know that that is our only choice. Because we know that without exception, if we stand together, it is the only way that we can win. So I hope that you see this movement is not about partisan labels or purity tests, but about class solidarity. It's about the thousands of you who came out today to stand together and say our lives deserve dignity and our work deserves respect. No matter who we are or where we come from. We are here today to make a sacred promise to each other. Because our goal here today, and what I don't want for us today, what I want more for us today, is not just to come together, share a few inspiring words, and then go back to how things were. Can't do that. Our goal here today is to commit to building the kind of country we all deserve. second here. And I want each of you to turn to the people around you and get a good look. And I want you to greet someone you don't know. And this is awesome. And I think I don't want to interrupt. But it's because if I can offer one assignment today, before we all depart here, it's to leave this place connected to a new person you didn't know coming into this. Because Greeley, we do need to make that promise. We do need to take care of each other on our worst days and to share the successes of our best. And in making those promises to each other, that's how we're going to do it. No silver bullet, not from the top, but block by block. So thank you for having me. And it is my honor to introduce to you the senator, the man, the friend, the person who has helped bring all of us here together today, Senator Bernie Sanders.